So week 7 now, we're going to start adding a bit more and changing a few things. So feet soles are together in this seated posture called bound angle. And then if the knees are up higher, the blocks just help to support so that the inner thighs and the hip flexors can shut off a little bit and not have to work so hard. So they can be, the great thing about the blocks is they can be any height, and if you have one hip tighter than the other, you may actually have them at a different height. But you'll notice if the blocks aren't there, the hip flexors will kind of grab and contract, and then we can't get them to release, which is what we need. So they need to be a bit more passive in this position. And they also, the bolster helps us sit up so we can have our spine nice and upright. So we won't stay here too long because it can be a challenging pose to stay in. But once you're here, just let the eyes close. And then start to connect to your breath. Just notice the quality of the breath as you arrive on your mat. And notice as you sit here if the shoulders are hinged forward ahead of the hips, and if they are, just float the upper body back a little bit so that the torso is nicely stacked and the breath can move really quite freely. And though we're working to sit up nice and tall, see if there's also some softness you can find in the posture. And then see if you can also connect to the pelvic floor. So moving with the diaphragm, the pelvic floor is going to move down and release on inhalation and up slightly on the exhalation. Okay, then we're going to open the eyes, and we'll actually change the leg position. We'll come into, you can do it with straight legs if they need to straighten for a bit, or we'll come into just a cross-legged position. And we'll take we'll move into a gentle twist. So left hand to the right side of the body. And then lengthen up before you twist. So inhale and get long, and then exhale and turn. And it's just a gentle, easy twist, just the second posture for today. So we're not going to move vigorously. Take a couple breaths in the twist. And then after your next exhalation, you'll unwind and switch to the other side. So inhale, get really tall, long in the spine. And then as you exhale, literally just wrapping the tissue around the spine. Nice and easy. It can turn with the twist. feels good to actually keep the body in the twist and turn the head the complete opposite way, looking over the front shoulder. Finish the next exhalation. And then we'll come back forward. Good, we're coming back into bound angle. So feet soles together again. Blocks under the outer thighs if we need them. And then we're going to come into eagle pose with the arms. Okay, so arms will come up, and we'll take the right arm over the left, hug the shoulders in, or the elbows in, and then backs of the arms towards each other, possibly interlacing if the wrists can stay flat. And then of course, if the shoulders don't have enough room, you can always use a strap as well. But really, if they don't reach and you don't have a strap at home, you just keep pressing them towards each other and breathe. Connect back to the pelvic floor with the breath. That side. Roll up the shoulders a little bit. And into the other side. So left arm over top. Snug them in. And any stage that works for your shoulder range of motion. We know that a lot of people's pelvic floors are over-recruited now, and so this is actually a great posture to get more of the release aspect. We can still voluntarily work both sides, the release and the engagement. Release. Roll out the shoulders again. And then we'll bring the knees up. And we'll actually come on to hands and knees. So patting under the knees if you prefer that. Stack the knees under the hips and the wrists under the shoulders. And then we're just going to move through cat and cow. So as you inhale, slowly starting at the base of the spine, move into the arch. As you exhale, start at the base of the spine, you'll move into the rounding. Try to keep starting at the base of the spine on each side of the movement versus letting the head jump in too soon. Back and forth. And then see if you can connect for the last few. Connect the pelvic floor engagement or release. So releasing on inhalation as the diaphragm moves down. And engaging on exhalation as the diaphragm moves back up. Good. One more full cycle. neutral spine. We'll take the knees a little wider, and the toes will go together in the back. And as we inhale, we're going to float the hips back. Exhale up to tabletop. Inhale, float the hips back. And long exhale up to tabletop. Back and forth, moving with your breath. So this is a little counterintuitive to how we might normally breathe in this posture, but we're switching it on purpose so that we can manage the voluntary pelvic floor release while we're back in forward hero. A couple more. And last time, float the hips back. Okay, we're going to make our way into a posture that for every single student takes a slight variation. So it's called garland or Malasan pose. And basically, what it is coming down into this position, which is a challenging position to get into. And what tends to impede us is our feet can't stay flat when we come to this full squat. So it's either foot tightness or generally hip or back tightness. But it's a really good posture for the pelvic floor. So one of the ways to help is to use blocks. And you just want to make sure that you don't fall backwards. But basically we can modify this pose into this position for those that can't get all the way down. Okay, and then maybe you can, but not quite, so you'll take one block away, and you still have that support helping you keep the heels down. Yeah, that's it, good, good. And you're using your arms to press out and maybe widen the legs a little bit, but at the same time, keep the chest lifting. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good. And then we're just going to breathe there, focusing on pelvic floor contraction and release. And sometimes there are people who still need to be in the chair, so we would build it up with blocks for the feet. This, and this is where they would start. So if you need that option as well. There's always an option. Pose can always be taken to a chair, a wall, or flipped right upside down and doing it reclined instead. Good. So this is a great pose. If you have seen a pelvic health specialist and you've been told that the pelvic floor is over-recruited, which we know is generally more often the case now, this is a great pose for releasing the pelvic floor. Because we're contracting and releasing on purpose, voluntarily, we can still do both sides, focusing on the breath awareness and the pelvic floor awareness. But if you've seen someone that has told you the pelvic floor is overly tight or overly recruited, then this is a good homework pose. Just take another couple of breaths here. And you can bring bring the hands down if that's easier to come out. And slowly open up those hip flexors. They might be a little tight down.
Creaky?
Yeah, a little sticky. Okay, we're going to come to our half sun salutations. So you can come to the top of your mat or the middle of your mat, and we're just going to inhale and exhale. Inhale, lift and lengthen. And exhale, fold deeply, let the back of the neck go. And then strong legs to rise up. And exhale, hands to the heart. Good, we'll do a few more. You guys know it now, so you can move with your breath in your time. Just remember to inhale and get that longer spine again. And the exhale is a real hip hinge. I'll do two more. Top of the inhale, you can do a little back bend if that feels okay for you. Last one. Okay, we'll just pause here for a moment. Close the eyes. Feel into the body. Try to feel equally standing between the left and right sides of the body. We'll open the eyes again. We're going to come into chair pose, and then we're going to add a twist through the upper body, okay? So we're going to sit back in our chair, and then we're going to take the left elbow to the right knee, and place the top hand on top, the right hand on top, and then we're just going to turn to the right. That's it. Good. Okay, and then we're going to come back. And now we're going to add it through more of a dynamic posture, okay? So we're going to come here, and I'm going to inhale here, and a long exhale into the twist. And then inhale forward, exhale, twist to the other side. Inhale, and I'm going to move back and forth sides. Slowly though, make sure you have that inhale in between, so you're not just swinging from one side to the other. And of course it can be done in a chair as well. Sometimes the pelvis turns as you twist, and that's probably a good thing. Let the pelvis turn with you so that the SI, the SI joint is happy. And one more. Excellent. Good. Shake the legs out a little bit. Okay, this time we're going to start facing the long side of our mat. We're going to step the feet apart. And this position we'll actually remember. We'll take a picture with our mind because we're going to come back to this position in between, or a similar position with the feet like this. We're going to start in Warrior Two though. So the front leg or the right leg is going to turn all the way out. Okay, the entire leg revolves. And then we're going to keep the back foot pretty much as is and come down into Warrior Two. Okay, we've done this one, so we know we want the knee stacked. We know we want really just the big toe showing, maybe a little bit of the second toe to keep that knee aligned well. My torso is actually facing my side mat, and then I look forward over my front hand. Okay, we're just going to breathe here. We've been doing a lot of dynamic movement in the first 6 weeks. Just going to see if we can still connect to pelvic floor with a static hold. So inhaling, feeling a bit of a softening. And exhaling, feeling the pelvic floor engage. Okay, after the next exhalation, we're going to straighten that front leg, turn the toes back, and then with a really long spine in neutral, we're going to tip forward, and the hands might come to the floor, or you may just stay in tabletop. You might grab your 2 blocks and put them there if you need them. Whatever you might need, even a chair can work in front here. Couple exhalations there. You might come a little lower. Just see where the body wants to come to. There's no goal in mind. We're just going by what our body is okay with. And then we'll come back to tabletop position. And once we're there, we can take the hands back to the hips and strength of the legs to rise up. You might need to heel toe in a little bit. And now it'll be the second leg that's going to revolve out. Okay, where was I here? Now we're going to bend that left leg, or the second front leg, over. Same alignment principles. Look down at your knee, look down at those toes, then arms come up. Chest faces the side, the long side of your mat, and then your head turns to look forward over the left middle finger. So the body is staying upright. It's not charging forward with the leg. And you'll take a few breaths there. Connect back to the pelvic floor. And after the next exhalation, you'll straighten your front leg. Turn the whole leg back. And then again, we're going to hinge forward. Hands at the hips usually just helps with awareness that we're doing a hip hinge and not a spinal rounding. And hands might be onto a block. They might come onto the legs, whatever feels comfortable for you. Some people like to wrap the toes. Just coming down to a comfortable position. Excellent posture. Really, really good. through the spine. Okay, and then you're slowly going to come back to tabletop. And then at tabletop, you can return the hands to the hips and rise up through the strength of the legs. Good. Take a break, just shake out the legs if you need it. Okay, we're going to start the next few poses the same way. So wide-legged. And then we're going to go back to our first side, revolve that whole leg out. We want to make sure the revolving comes right from the hip socket. So everything, thigh bone, knee, and toes all turn out. And then we're coming back to our warrior two position. Okay. So for some people, the knee can't stay open. And we have to really work. It wants to fall into the midline. We have to work at that, and sometimes that means for a while we bring the back foot forward to help so the pelvis will be happier. So find those adjustments if you need them. And then from warrior two, we're going to keep the lower body as is, reach forward, come down onto our forearm, but not to rest. We're using it to lift and to open the body. And then that top arm can go up. Beautiful. If it feels okay in the shoulder, the bicep can come towards that top ear. But if it doesn't, if it feels better to keep it up to 12 o'clock, that's fine too. We're working to stack the shoulder blades on top of each other. Same thing, connect to the breath. We won't stay here too long, so the next exhalation, lower body stays as is, upper body comes back through warrior two. Then straighten the leg, revolve it, and we'll take our little rest in wide-legged forward bend again. Little release for the low back. And just take a few breaths here. Taking any opportunity to see if we can connect to that pelvic floor. Softening on the inhalation and subtly engaging on the exhalation. And then back to tabletop, rising up and revolving through the second side. So whole leg revolves. We set ourselves up into our warrior two position for the moment. Coming down into that lunge and then reaching forward, forearm onto the left leg, top arm up. If the shoulders are quite mobile, the top arm might come over. But just move in your comfortable range of motion. Stay connected to that breath, that exhalation, strengthening your pose. Exhalation. Of course, these can be done on the chair again. And then rising up through warrior two. And we're going to come back to that forward fold one more time. So wide legs. And then hinging forward. Catching our breath for the moment from some stronger standing postures. And then while you're down there, just heel toe the feet into till they come to about hip distance apart in a standing forward fold. And then slowly we'll start to rise up. Stacking our joints until we're standing. hips a bit again if they need it from some of those wider postures. So we're coming back into tree. Now we've done some form of balance in every class, right? And we're going to challenge it a bit today. So we're going to come into whatever version our tree is. The leg might be lower, the leg might be higher, the toes might still be even on the ground. Any version is okay. Once we get here and we feel solid, we're going to challenge ourselves to actually close our eyes, which we know will change everything. So find your position first. Really focus on that standing outer hip being really firm and strong and engaged. Steady your breath. And then close the eyes with a really steady gaze beneath the eyelids. You're going to waver. See if you can go with it versus trying to touch down right away. Whew, all over. And then let them open. And then we'll try the other side. So find your tree pose first. Feel steady and solid. And then let the eyes close. Go with the wavers. And then slowly release. Yeah, it's a challenge. We're getting into proprioception when we take our gaze away. Okay, we're going to come back to just a regular tree pose. So again, foot where you like it. Kneel, come out as far as is comfortable for your hip range of motion. We'll keep the eyes open. This one's going to feel easy by comparison. Side. Same thing. You can always have your hands on the wall if you need it, or on a chair. Just turn sideways if you need to. And the prop, the wall or the chair would be on your standing leg side. Back down. And release it. Good. Okay, we're going to make our way back down onto our mat. Coming into some plank variations. So if you know you might need some padding under the knees, you want to keep the knees down, feel free, go right ahead and grab some blankets or a bolster. If the toes, quite often, especially as we get older, the toes do not like that full flexion. So the bolster can always be under the shins during the plank, more from pressing the shins down than the toes. So you can decide what's best for your feet. So we'll start with forearms. Once you have your props, and we'll have the knees well back behind the hips so the core engages. So if the knees are down, walk them back till you find almost that ironing board position. And remember to tuck that one pinky finger under so you just have a nice stable base. Some people even like to do it with the hands on the ground. And knees can come up. Hips down though if you're keeping knees, yeah, a little more. Good. Move with the breath, both sides of the breath. And then after your exhalation, you need to come down, put the knees down. And just rest in crocodile, hand over hand. We'll come back, we'll do one more plank. So it can be on forearms again, it can be knees down, or you might want to try coming up onto full arms. Move from dolphin plank into plank. You can decide. Find that little lift through those side muscles that we talked about, serratus anterior muscles. And breathe, that's the key. Keep breathing, don't hold the breath. Good, really good positions. See if you can get one more long exhale there. Good, excellent. Take a rest for a moment.
Nice to do that 60 seconds for no problem.
Yeah, it takes time to build back up again. Give me your email and I'll send you my plank challenge. It goes for a whole month. Every day is a different variation and it slowly builds up over time. Okay, we're going to do one more for our core. This one's a doozy, so this one you got to have an open mind and a good sense of humor. Okay? What we're going to do here, I'll demo it first so your brain can get a picture of where we're going. We're going to start in half boat pose, which we've done, and then we're going to open up and come back up. But we don't get to actually open up and rest, which it's hard to talk doing this. We're going to open up and come back in.
Would you do that 5 more times for me?
Sure.
Just so I can do it.
Just for fun. I'll go a little faster. Okay, so here's the tricky part. Depending on what our intention is, that's going to drive our breath. So for the pelvic floor intention, I'd like to inhale and open and exhale, pull in, which kind of makes sense. The belly likes to squeeze the breath out, but sometimes the opening is the hardest part. And if there's any back issues, you might serve yourself better to exhale. So you really have to explore it and find out. Because it might be easier to exhale here and inhale, pull back up. So, and remember, you can start with a very little opening to start to let your body know what is she expecting, and then slowly make the opening bigger. Of course, if you need a modification, we would just keep hands down. Come on to elbows.
I feel like I'm going to fall like this.
Yeah, you do get a little tippy. It takes some work to learn how to get that opening with the back barely above. Yeah, good. You don't need many of these, like 3, 4, 5, that's enough.
Come on.
Yeah. It's tricky. And you gotta be breathing. That's the hardest part of core work, is to keep breathing. That's it, Jack. Excellent. Good. Awesome. Okay, now core you can feel it for sure. Okay, so we're gonna come back down to the ground. We'll lie here just for a moment, catch our breath. You may need to have a strap handy. Okay, just in case. I don't think you guys will need it, but we'll have one just in case. So bend the knees, plant the feet. And we're going to come into something called reclined pigeon or sleeping pigeon. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the right ankle across the left thigh, just above the knee. And then without using the hands, we're going to see, does the knee move back at all? But I only want you to do it through your hip muscles. Okay, and then you're going to keep the right foot flexed, and then bring the left foot up off the ground. And you might be able to clasp behind, or the strap comes in really handy to help with that thigh. Now before we go too far, I just want you to check that the right pelvis hasn't lifted, right side of the pelvis. Keep those hip points nice and level. And then if it's available, you're going to start to hug that left thigh towards the belly. Keeping the right foot flexed. You can take the strap around the thigh if just wrap it right around that left thigh. Because we want the head and the back of the sacrum for sure to stay on the ground. Lift the left heels a little more so they're at a right angle. And then maybe try to move dynamically, drawing the leg in and out. And again, if pelvic floor is the intention, then we would probably inhale to pull it in, which again feels a bit counterintuitive to squeezing the belly, but depends on the intention. Back and forth. And then we'll release the left foot back to the floor. Uncross the right leg. Make sure the pelvis is nice and even again before you head in on the other side. Now left leg is up and over. And then right foot comes off the ground. There's all kinds of ways to prop this if lying down doesn't work. You can simply build it up in a chair. Just make sure both sides of the waist are still equally lengthened. It would normally be the left hip that wants to lift. So lengthen out through the left hip. And then move dynamically back and forth. You can even, if you need to be on a chair, you can even do this without lifting the leg and instead use a hip hinge. Get a little more into the opposite hip though with the chair. Back and forth, try to keep that right leg at a right angle. And then lower the right leg, uncross. We won't need the strap for the next one. We're just going to take the feet a little wider apart so that they're almost as wide as your mat, the width of your mat. And then we're gonna do what we call windshield wipers. So both knees will go over to the right, but they won't stay together. Okay, in fact, the left knee will probably point more towards the right ankle. And then we'll come back and over to the left. Knees will go nice and wide apart. So we get some good internal and external hip rotation. And the only caution for this one would be if there's been a hip replacement surgery. We wouldn't cross the midline with the top leg. We would just go open and make that modification. But if not, you're just moving through that full range. Try to find the range that allows you to pretty much keep the back of the sacrum on the ground, back of the pelvis. The top hip will lift a little bit. And then we'll come back to center. And we're going to hug the knees to the belly. Get ready for our relaxation pose. So again, you can move dynamically as we've done in the past. Moving with the breath. Back and forth. Or just hug them in, give them a good squeeze, maybe a little rock side to side. And then as you're ready, stretch out one leg and then the other. Bolster under the thighs if you prefer. Head support if you like it. Taking the next couple breaths to just make little adjustments to find more comfort. Giving the body permission to relax. Feel the breath slow down and allow it to just fall into its pattern, its relaxed pattern, no breath regulation. Feel the soles of the feet release. Both feet completely soften. Feel the entire right leg relax. The entire left leg relax. Both legs become heavily relaxed. Feel the pelvis settle into the mat beneath you. Chest soften and open. Shoulders relax back. The upper back release. Lower back. Feel both arms. Soften. Relax. Both hands release and soften. The neck and throat release. And the lower hinge of the jaw. Lower hinge of the jaw gets to almost feel like a slackened hammock. Cheeks soften. The eyes are soft. Space between the eyebrows releases. The skin of the forehead smooths out. The whole body relax. Whole body rest. Slowly let the breath begin to deepen. And wiggle the toes and the fingers. Just bring in small movements back into the body. Make the movements a little bit bigger. in if you need to before you head over. Try to keep the eyes closed as you come up to sitting. And come to a comfortable seated position. Once you're settled, close the eyes again if they open. And we'll just try to connect to a nice upright posture. Again, we do have a tendency to often hinge the shoulders forward, so just become aware of that. And if they are, float the upper body back. Connect back to the breath. And then, similar to last week, just become aware of the body as a whole. Feel or imagine the entire body as you sit here in this shape, this posture. And then we'll move into just becoming aware of the parts of the body touching the floor or the mat. Parts of the body touching other parts of the body. And the parts of the body that are just in space. Feel the toes. Soles of the feet, tops of the feet, the ankles, the shins and calves, knees, thighs, whole bowl of the pelvis, the low belly, mid belly, and chest, both shoulders, upper arms, elbows, lower arms, the wrists, center of both palms, fingers and thumbs. Become aware of the low back, the mid back, the upper back, front of the throat, back of the neck, both ears, the jaw, nose, both eyes, the forehead, back of the skull, and finally the crown of the head. And then become aware of the whole body again. The body as a whole. finish this time with one round of eye palming. So it's a very gentle cupping of one palm over each eye without pressing into the eye at all. But first you take your hands together and you rub, and you just create some friction and some warmth. Rub them together until the hands actually heat up, and then very gently cup over each eye, heels of the hands on the cheekbones. And you just feel that warm, heated energy move into the eye sockets. And as it slowly starts to dissipate, you can slowly bring the hands to the heart, pressing together, and then let the eyes open.